Will now resume its sitting. Acknowledge Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And first, Madam Speaker, before I get started, I would like to offer my sincere apologies for not being here in the Parliament when the Honourable Member for St. John City East, Minister of Finance, presented his budget statement. I had to then travel again to the States to get further medical treatment for my back, and then I had to come back last week for the 2 funerals, and I profoundly apologize, no disrespect to you, Madam Speaker, or to the Honourable House. I followed what I could on the television last Friday. Madam Speaker, I rise to make my contribution in this Honourable House to the budget of 2014. And today, I don't wish to be too controversial, just to place my points on record in terms of examining 4 key areas of the budget from what I have looked at in the budget statement by the Honourable Minister of Finance that he presented. And those 4 areas, Madam Speaker, in my opinion, will negatively impact the residents of the St. Peter's constituency, my beloved people up there in Parliament Piers, and Lightfoot, and Weirs, where you live, Madam Speaker, and Painters, and Fidges Creek. And it will also adversely affect all the good people of Antigua and Barbuda. So, Madam Speaker, the first area that I would like to examine today is the underfunding for the Electoral Commission, that is the ABEC, in the proposed budget by the Minister of Finance. Well, I want to expand a little bit more about that because I think that is very important, Madam Speaker. The untenable conditions at the Mount St. John Medical Center, Madam Speaker. And then the third one, Madam Speaker, is that you go overseas too. The burdensome debt which the UPP regime has incurred over the last 9.5 years, Madam Speaker, and which they continue to incur. And the most important one, Madam Speaker, is the failure of the United Progressive Party government to expand the economy and to expand economic opportunities. And this is caused directly, Madam Speaker, by the high taxes that this government has imposed on the people of this country, which in turn, you would know, Madam Speaker, when you have high taxes in a small, vulnerable economy and a small island state like ours, it in turn negatively impacts foreign direct investment, and then you will not have any job creation or wealth creation in the country. But before I get into those areas, Madam Speaker, first, however, I wish to extend sincere congratulations to the member of St. George for her hands-on approach in managing the official funeral for Sir Adolphus Freeland. You did an excellent job, as usual. Funeral that was held last Thursday the 30th. And from start to finish, Madam Speaker, the responsibilities for the member for St. George were executed with precision. So I just wish to congratulate you.
Absolutely.
And also, Madam Speaker, I was not in Parliament, and I'm not going to use today's the budget to make a tribute. But in passing, I just want to say a few brief words about Sir Adolphus Freeland. As we all know, he was a highly regarded Minister of Parliament, Member of Parliament, for many years, and probably the longest standing Minister of Labour in the Commonwealth. His role as General Secretary of the Antigua Trades and Labour Union for 5 years, from 1971 to 76, indeed prepared him for his responsibilities as Minister of Labour. And he enjoyed a very, very close friendship with my late father, Patrick Michael, the late Maurice Michael. In fact, he named one of his sons, Michael, after my uncle Maurice Michael. And I recall as kids every Christmas, Andy and Steve, his 2 sons, would work in my father's department store. And we enjoyed a very, very, very close relationship. That is the Freeland family and the Michael family over the years. There was nothing that Sir Adolphus wanted for the Antigua Trades and Labour Union or for the ALP that he would not feel free to go and to ask. And as the member for St. Philip's North said in your presentation, in your tribute to him, he was such a hard worker for those 2 institutions. Sir George Walter was also General Secretary, as we know, of the Antigua Trades and Labour Union before he became Premier between 1971 to 1976. And the Honorable Lionel Hurst Sr., before Sir George, was also General Secretary of the Antigua Trades and Labor Union for 13 years. And then he became the first Minister of Labor, I believe. That was Max Hurst's father, Sir Lionel Hurst Sr. I also note, Madam Speaker, that the member for St. John's Rural West, the Honorable Prime Minister, he also received his training and employment, and he's walking in here now, at the Antigua Trades and Labor Union. And he revealed on Thursday, Madam Speaker, at the funeral of Sir Adolphus, that his studies, he also received his studies at the Cody Institute, and those studies were also afforded by the Antigua Trades and Labor Union. I say all that to say, Madam Speaker, that 46 North Street was certainly a great training ground, and I'm sure the Prime Minister would agree, for political advancement for many. And all of us owe a debt to the Antigua Trades and Labor Union for creating a new Antigua, a new economy, and new opportunities for achieving self-fulfillment. And that's why, Madam Speaker, in my humble view, we should not be plotting to kill that 75-year-old great institution. We must protect our institutions, we must value our institutions, we must preserve them, we must be proud of them, Madam Speaker. And I say that, Madam Speaker, because in reading the budget speech, I did not read in its entirety, but certain key sections, and if you look, Madam Speaker, the so-called public sector transformation strategy, which appeared on page 46 of the budget presentation by the Honorable Minister of Finance, it does not tell the whole story, Madam Speaker. The Finance Minister's remarks only skimpily describe the process taking place, Madam Speaker. And with your permission, I just want to quote a few lines from what the Minister said. And I quote, he said, Madam Speaker, our bold and broad public sector transformation strategy remains on track as 2014 unfolds. With continued support from our development partners, the World Bank, Caribbean Development Bank, and others, relevant and timely reforms will be introduced. Some incremental, others radical, to fuel a new economy for growth and prosperity. Of paramount importance is equipping public officers with the skills and knowledge indispensable to delivering the services to sustain growth and prosperity. A specific capacity building program will be designed for public service management entities to enhance their ability to execute their functions. These functions will include policy development, oversight, coordination, information management roles. Based on the recommendations from functional reviews of all ministries, including the Cabinet Secretariat, new structures, re-engineered business processes, and information technology will be used to boost organizational capacity across government. And then continues, strengthening strategic management of government policies, modernizing the civil service management, where it says a comprehensive review of civil service management was conducted during 2013. Recommendations were offered for improving the organizational structure. But, Madam Speaker, the Finance Minister's remarks does not tell the whole story, as I said. Our contention, that is the Antigua Trades and Labor Union, Madam Speaker, sees this whole public sector transformation strategy as being no more than an attempt to deprive the Antigua Trades and Labor Union of the revenues that it derives as the bargaining agent, or the main bargaining agent, Mr. Prime Minister, which you know, from all of the non-established workers. And that cannot be right, Madam Speaker, because the Antigua Trades and Labor Union, they need those revenues to survive. And by this strategy, this public service sector transformation, what the government is proposing, Madam Speaker, is to have a single tier service and making every government employee an established worker, as proposed by the Public Sector Transformation Unit. The Antigua Trades and Labor Union President, Mr. Bigley George, discerns that this is really an attempt to kill his union, the Antigua Trades and Labor Union. The money, Madam Speaker, the money, I'll tell you why, the money which the Antigua Trades and Labor Union derives from the weekly and from the monthly dues of non-established workers is a significant portion of the AT&LU's revenues. But you continue to employ? and you continue to employ non-established workers. Oh. You would never do that. You're a trade union man, Mr. Prime Minister. That's where you received your training and your start in your political career. But I'm sure you don't want to do anything to kill the union, Mr. Prime Minister. Anyway, Madam Speaker, I reiterate that if those revenues are diverted to the Antigua and Barbuda Public Service Association, Mr. Honourable Member for St. John's Rural West, when all the government employees are classified into one category as civil servants, then what will happen to the ATNLU? Who will they represent? What will happen to the 7,000 workers that they represent? And Madam Speaker, I believe, and if you look at the Constitution, Madam Speaker, Section 106, subsection 5 of the Antigua and Barbuda Constitution Order. 106, subsection 5, it says, and I quote, in this section, the appropriate bodies representing the public service means the Antigua and Barbuda Civil Service Association, or such other body representing the interests of public officers as the Governor General may designate. Then it goes on, the appropriate body representing members of the police force means the Police Welfare Association, or such other body representing the interests of members of the police force as the Governor General may designate. But Madam Speaker, the Constitution order stipulates that all public servants, all public officers are to be represented by the Antigua and Barbuda Civil Service Association. That is the Antigua and Barbuda Public Service Association. Then what will happen? The ATNLU will be cut off from its major source of revenue if this plan is adopted. It's a fact. I don't know why the Prime Minister is getting upset about it. It's a fact, Madam Speaker. Anyway, Madam Speaker, the Antigua Trades and Labour Union, we vehemently oppose this. We oppose this so-called public sector transformation for another reason also. And that is the labour experts who have studied our government service have indicated that merging both the established and the non-established workforce is a task near impossible. The differences you have, Madam Speaker, in benefits, in salaries, are just too vast. To bridge those existing gaps is far too expensive. It's going to create a lot of confusion in the service. And the horse is already bolted, Madam Speaker. You have thousands of non-established workers, Madam Speaker. I think we are even categorized, I stand to be corrected as parliamentarians, as non-established workers, aren't we? Excuse me. And to eliminate the category of non-established workers is also to rob the ministers. The flexibility, Madam Speaker, in hiring competent, well-educated, good persons, experts, technicians in various fields, and others that are required from time to time. You will not have that flexibility no more, Mr. Minister. It will all take place from the Antigua and Barbuda Public Service Association, who will be in charge of all of the recruiting, interviewing, hiring. And I'm saying, Madam Speaker, that plan ought to be stopped, because in all likelihood you won't have time to change the law before the elections. And we are just saying on this side of the House, Madam Speaker, if they try to stop it, that the Labour Party will reverse that plan as soon as it becomes the government after March. Anyway. Excuse me, please. But Madam Speaker, elections are not won or lost on the basis of a threat to a 75-year-old union which we all love. And we must realize in this Honourable House that the union has 7,000 members, and the ATNLU, like all unions, is less influential today than in days past. In days past it was the only union. Nevertheless, in marginal constituencies, support from the ATNLU is critical to the Antigua Labour Party. And Madam Speaker, public sector transformation is a disguise that we will address frontally when the time arises, when the moment arises. But I prefer, Madam Speaker, today to move on to speaking on the planning of the elections for 2014 and its management by the Antigua and Barbuda Electoral Commission. Because you see, Madam Speaker, and I'm sorry the Prime Minister is not here, but he left the chamber, because this should be directly put out to him for his consideration, because he is the minister responsible for elections, and the Antigua and Barbuda Electoral Commission falls under his portfolio. And the buck has to stop here, at his desk. Madam Speaker, elections cannot be successfully held if the Electoral Commission is not properly funded. And I do not know how many times we're going to repeat that and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it over. In 2009, the general elections were not very well executed, to say the least. It was badgered. I mean, up in St. Peter's, many other constituencies, Madam Speaker, you had persons there from 5 o'clock in the morning waiting to exercise their democratic and their constitutional right and franchise to vote. And the polls are supposed to open up at 6 o'clock. And voting in several polling divisions began very late. Why, Madam Speaker? We are told because of a printer malfunction. Sir Gerald Watt subsequently reported that he had to plead and beg for additional funds. He went up several times to the Prime Minister's office and pleaded with him to get the additional monies required to conduct general elections back in 2009. And it fell on deaf ears, Madam Speaker. We don't want a repetition of what happened at debacle in 2009. That cannot be fair, it cannot be right. Because the Commission, weeks before the 2009 general elections, they purchased a printer, Madam Speaker, for 17,000 EC dollars. That's all what they were given to purchase that printer. When they submitted to the Ministry of Finance and to the Prime Minister's office a requirement to purchase a state-of-the-art printer that would cost in the vicinity of $97,000. And they were refused. They were declined. The cheap printer malfunctioned, the cheap, inefficient printer for $17,000, Madam Speaker, when they put it to work and elections came about, it malfunctioned on the day of election. An honorable member for Rural West, that cannot be allowed to happen again. What happened in 2009 in terms of not having enough funding for the Antigua and Barbuda Electoral Commission. When you just stepped out, I started speaking about that, and I mentioned about the printer, that they had a requirement. Sir Gerald had submitted to the Ministry of Finance and to your ministry a requirement for a printer that cost $97,000, and they were only afforded $17,000 to buy this printer. And they used the cheap printer, Madam Speaker, and what happened? It malfunctioned on the day of elections. Well, I'm only quoting from Sir Gerald Watt. All I'm saying, I'm not here to argue with you today, Mr. Prime Minister. You're getting very upset. I'm trying to say the debacle that happened in 2009, Mr. Prime Minister, at the end of the day, the Electoral Commission, what is called ABEC, falls under your portfolio. I'm not saying that if something malfunctions that you must go up there and micromanage everything. But I'm saying at the end of the day, you as the minister responsible for that department must ensure that sufficient funds. About the printer? Of course. You did not provide sufficient. And I'm going to prove to you, even now in this current budget, Madam Speaker, that have only increased from last 2013, $600,000 that you've budgeted in addition. $600,000, I'll come to that. 2013 was not an election year. 2014 is an election year, and you've only increased the budget by $600,000. You have to print 48,000 cards, Mr. Prime Minister, member for Rural West. You have to make sure, Mr. Member for Rural West, that all the money is provided, whatever is necessary, to conduct the elections well, fair, and to start on time, sir. And this Parliament, and we are supposed to be the guardians of our democracy, Mr. Prime Minister. We are not sent here, Madam Speaker. We are not hired by the people out there, Madam Speaker, in order to diminish their democracy and their fundamental right and constitutional right to vote and to vote on time. And now I note, however, Madam Speaker, that the amount that's budgeted for ABLP in 2014, and if we look, Madam Speaker, on the white page in this book, page 87, give me a minute, please, so I can find it. Page 87, Madam Speaker. The budgeted for the Antigua and Barbuda Electoral Commission in 2014 is $4,676,783, Madam Speaker. That exceeds 2013 expenditure, which I just said, by about $600,000, Madam Speaker. Salaries and wages of permanent staff, as seen on page 30. If you look back now to page 30, they give you a breakdown of all the salaries and the staff. That will total $2,829,848, Madam Speaker. So I find it extremely hard and difficult to believe that the ABLP will hire more than 100 additional staff, Mr. Member for St. John's Rural West. Contract trainers, print 48,000 cards, high-tech cards, buy time on radio, television, newspapers, defend multiple lawsuits. We have the whole re-registration case, lawsuits, enter into all manner of contracts that you have to in an election year. And those expenses will only cost $600,000, Mr. Prime Minister. More 600,000 more than 2013, which was a non-election year. No, man. Something is wrong, Madam Speaker. That's either a print or a mistake or something. The Minister of Finance has to look into that. Nowhere in the estimates, Madam Speaker, nowhere in the estimates do I see a breakdown for the expenses, for the amount that has been budgeted, except for salaries and wages and allowances. If you look on the orange pages, in page 30 of the orange pages, they have a breakdown of salaries and wages. But no capital expenditure, no equipment purchasing. No way, I don't see it. Help me if I've missed it. Tell me where to look, Mr. Prime Minister. And help me to understand where the expenses explained for ABLP, so that this Honourable House can be assured, Mr. Prime Minister, that the general elections of 2014 will not be a repeat of the 2009 debacle. Because I want to assure my people, I'm sure you want to assure your people in St. Philip's North, I'm sure you want to assure your people in St. John's Rural West, the ones that did not have an opportunity to vote until 1 p.m. on election day. Madam Speaker, I want to know this morning, can I assure them that they'll be able to commence exercising their franchise at 6 a.m. and go until 6 p.m.? I want this assurance in advance, Mr. Prime Minister, because we had 3,200 people, Madam Speaker, on the register for St. Peter's in 2009, and we only had a turnout of just under 2,800 persons, Madam Speaker. Nearly 700 persons did not get to exercise their franchise to vote in the St. Peter's constituency. I did not challenge it because I won so convincingly. But a lot of people, even all of the LIAT pilots, Madam Speaker, they could not get to vote. What do you think, they're going to stand up from 5 o'clock in the morning to 1 p.m. and they have planes to go and fly? Madam Speaker, I contend that elections must be free and fair, and only if the money is sufficient that can happen. And another question, where is the June 2013 ABLP report? It has not come to this House, Madam Speaker, or the December report for that matter. Madam Speaker, I'm aware that the boundaries case and the re-registration case are before the courts, so I'm not going to get into speaking anything about that. As you said, those matters are sub judice. But, Madam Speaker, just in passing, can we imagine the confusion if, following claims and objections that could last up to 3 weeks, Madam Speaker, the Electoral Commission is compelled to move around the registered voters because of our boundary changes in this country? You have, I think, 31 days, more than 3 weeks, for claims and objections after the list is published. And I ask this Honourable House, how is it going to be done in time for a general election due by March 12, 2014, Mr. Prime Minister? I heard you get up in your presentation, you said we have high technology, we're operating in a different era. It's not 20 years ago, and they must go ahead and start doing the work. But I remember the last election, Madam Speaker, when they moved just 200 persons from All Saints West into St. Peter. That was Lightfoot East. The registration officers and the Boundaries Commission employees had to go house to house to house to explain to each voter now they will not be registered and voted in All Saints West, but now they have to be transferred to St. Peter. And that took them nearly 2 weeks. And that was just for 200 and something persons. How is it going to happen? I would like to get some kind of explanation, Madam Speaker, on how does the Boundaries Commission propose to do that in the short space of time, given that elections are constitutional during the next 30 to 60 days.
I don't think that's what the Constitution says either.
Well, we know the Prime Minister has 3 months after. I don't think you'd want to go down that road though, Madam Speaker. We are less than 40 days and 40 nights, Madam Speaker, removed from the day on which the general elections are due. And I'm sure the Prime Minister would agree with me. And if you take 28 days, but the Prime Minister is not going to extend it because you want him to extend it because you have not done enough work in your constituency. But he's politically savvy and he's not going to go past that. So you better go and start doing your work, Honourable Member. You didn't hear what he said? You didn't hear what he said? You did, but I only want to quote what your Honourable Member said. You said let them start doing their work. Let them start, because the election will come like a thief in the night. Well, so tell them to get started. We are ready. We are ready, and we want the elections called on March 12th or before. So don't use the Constitution to tell me that yes, you have 90 days and after, and they take us all the way down to May and June. Madam Speaker, I am saying that we only have less than 40 days and 40 nights.
No,
And Madam Speaker,
I
if
don't
you
think
take...
you should say that. You're misleading. That is not true.
Well,
That
Madam
is not
Speaker,
constitutionally true.
That's my opinion, Madam Speaker. That's my opinion. And the people of this country want the elections to be held in March.
Yes, but I want you to be responsible with your opinion.
I said that the Prime Minister has the right under the Constitution to go 90 days after the first sitting of the House. I think the first sitting was what, April the 27th? Was it April? When was the first sitting? April the 27th. But he's not going to do that. He's too politically savvy for that. And he's going to choose the right psychological moment when he thinks, absolutely, with the help of the divine. And Madam Speaker, we have to take out the period for claims and objections. It's at least 28 days for claims and objections, and fewer than 2 weeks remain for changing constituency boundaries then. What confusion will we witness? And I want to put in something else. We are forgetting that we are in court, and when the appeals court rules, suppose the appeal court rules in favor of the Labour Party in the re-registration case, as it is likely the outcome on February the 14th. What is going to happen? What is going to happen, Mr. Prime Minister? The decisions taken by the Honourable Member for St. John's Rural West, Madam Speaker, are representative of classic examples of procrastination, delay, and lateness. He was forewarned. He was told by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to accept the report, that if he accepted the report of the Boundaries Commission, start changing up the boundaries, a lawsuit is sure to follow. And we fulfilled our promise, Mr. Prime Minister. He was forewarned, and we had to call in the referee. So we lost. We're going now to the appeal court. Well, why are you not appealing the re-registration case, and you're not eager to make it a matter of urgent action, to file an urgent application to have it heard? Madam Speaker, I would like to caution the UPP to desist from taking continuously those harmful decisions that will further destroy our country, further create chaos in our country, further divide our people. You have people living in constituencies and voting in constituencies for years and have accustomed to be voting for their representative, and now to change them wholesale. I'm not saying I'm not against boundary changes so you have more equitable distribution of the voters. Not saying that at all. What is proposed by that Boundaries Commission report, it is wholesale gerrymandering to give the government of the day an unfair advantage to win the elections, Madam Speaker. It is not done in a fair and proper way. How can you explain, Madam Speaker? But that judgment is heard. The judge heard. How many judges heard?
Hold on. I don't even know that you can say the judge heard. The matter is still before the court, right?
In our application, we feel the judge heard.
So I would leave it alone if I were you.
In our application, our attorneys... Okay, all right. I take that back if I'm not supposed to say that, but I know our lawyers, when they're filed in the application before the appeal court, they say, and the judge have heard, and they put a whole schedule.
Okay, honorable member, just move on from
Right.
there. Thank you.
Correct. You don't nitpick me, Mr. Prime Minister. Look, you had your chance. Could I continue my presentation and stop being like a Spanish radio station in my ears? I'm not feeling too well. All I'm saying, Madam Speaker, everywhere. I mean, that mega concert we had, that 25,000 people, I mean, they're still hearing the music all in my ears. Oh, Lord. Please do not allow, Mr. Prime Minister, the 2014 elections to confirm the view. I only spoke for 1 minute. 1 minute.
Honorable members, this is not a review of a concert.
Madam Speaker, whether the challenge is posed, but you throwing out a lot up by you. Plenty. Plenty. They say your toys were the biggest toys.
Please.
You know, we have trinkets. We had big fire machines and so. Fire trucks and nice electron. Not even the Prime Minister had those nice ones. Sorry, man.
We're not campaigning. We're debating the budget.
Tell them, Madam Speaker.
Member for
Please.
St. Phillips South, same thing. Thank you. Good.
But, Madam Speaker, whether the challenge is posed by holding on-time elections or managing a shrinking economy, the results appear to be the same, Madam Speaker. Failure. There's nothing in the economy, Madam Speaker, going on in this country. The Minister of Finance gets up, he gets a beautiful speech, lovely sounding words. But where's the substance? Where are the jobs? Where are the hotels? Where are the investments, Madam Speaker, that we have been promised in the UPP manifesto since 9.5 years ago, Madam Speaker? Where are these tangible investors? Where are the jobs? Where are the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 new jobs you're supposed to create to expand the hotel industry, to bring another 25,000, 3,000 rooms? Even the hotel plant, they're being dilapidated. They're not giving the hotels the necessary concessions to upgrade their hotels and upgrade the capital structure of the hotels, Madam Speaker. Failure all around. I waded through the debt reporting section, Madam Speaker, of the recurrent and development estimates at the very back of this book, Madam Speaker. At the publication beginning at page 63, I would like to draw your attention to page 63. No, let us first go, Madam Speaker, after page 406 of the estimates. 70 separate pages are added that are paginated differently and colored orange and yellow. I don't know if you have that, Madam Speaker, in your book. But please, Madam Speaker, tell the typist to ensure it's not your job to tell them that the lines on the left identifying the accounts fall on the same plane as the figures on the right, because it's very confusing. I have to engage in guesswork on pages 63 and 64. I want you to have a look at it. It's terrible. The national debt, Madam Speaker, is broken down into two: domestic and external. The domestic stands at $1,639.2 million, the statement claims, Madam Speaker. The external debt, we are told, stands at $1,192 million, the statement also claims. Together, Madam Speaker, when you add these two figures, Madam Speaker, the two amounts total $2,831.2 million. I say that again for the benefit of the public, Madam Speaker. When you total these two amounts of the domestic debt, and the domestic debt, as I said, is $1,639.2 million, and the external debt, we are told, stands at $1,192 million. Together, these two amounts give you a whopping $2,831.2 million. And this amount, we have been told, is the national debt. Yet, Madam Speaker, they have failed to include in an understandable manner several other borrowings that are not reflected in this estimate, Madam Speaker. Either government guaranteed debt or borrowed through a statutory body like St. John's Development Corporation, APUA, Antigua Port Authority, the Free Trade Zone, all of these other statutory authorities. Or the government owes the statutory bodies and corporations, businesses and workers. So how is the $550 million owed to Social Security treated, Madam Speaker? We were told here last year that we have signed an agreement that was circulated with the Social Security and the central government for $550 million to pay them, I think, over what, 30 years? But, Madam Speaker, if you look at what is recorded in here, $220 million has vanished in this budget. Look on page 65, Madam Speaker, item number 2. Page 65, Madam Speaker, item number 2. There's only an amount there for $330 million. It's acknowledged. Where's the other $220 million, Mr. Minister of Finance? We were told and we were shown an agreement for $550 million. Interest payment, Madam Speaker, $5,953,751 is to be made in 2014 towards this loan. Neither the smaller amount, the $330 million, nor the larger amount, the $550 million, Madam Speaker, is included in the debt stock here in this book. Something is drastically wrong. So the national debt is significantly understated, Madam Speaker. And that's the point that I want to make. I hope the member for St. John City East is listening. He's not here. These figures are fictitious. It's not real. Just that one debt to Social Security has been understated by $220 million. So what else has been understated? Is this deliberate or is it a mistake? What is it? Help me. How is that amount owed now to medical benefits treated? You look on page 65, Madam Speaker. Let's now turn back to page 65. On page 65, item number 3, Madam Speaker. An amount of $125,852,116 is listed as the debt. That's the medical benefits. That amount is not included in national debt either. Where is that amount owed to the Board of Education, Madam Speaker, that you preside over? Could you help me with that at least? Show me in this budget the amount that the government owes to the Board of Education. It's not in here. I don't see it. What about the amount owed to state insurance? What about the amount owed, Madam Speaker, to Mount St. John Medical Center? What about the debt owed to Western Oil Company? We hear all kind of figures of 60 million, 70 million, as high as 80 million at one point that is owed to Western Oil Company. Why is not reflected here, Madam Speaker? At one point, the fuel through Petrocarib, yes. Yes, but that's why you all have to pay for the fuel up front. So you don't owe Western Oil? Yes, sir. No. So who owes Western Oil? Well, when you have your wrap-up, you will tell us. Whether it's through Petrocarib or whatever it is, you have not been paying for Western Oil on time. And at one point last year, I was reliably informed by the manager of Western Oil that the debt had reached nearly $80 million. And you all made attempts to bring it down to about 40 to $50 million. Who has to pay Western Oil? Petrocarib or the central government?
APUA.
APUA. Well, APUA is not owned by the government, Mr. Prime Minister? Okay, I said central government. I apologize. APUA then. What about the debt owed to the Antigua Power Company? The debt owed to Half Moon Bay? The debt owed to the civil servants in the form of back pay, overtime, and unpaid allowances? I know that you'll say, but you've been in government for 9 years. You have tripled the revenue. We ran the country on $440 million. Where are they? What is wrong? Is to be made right, you said, Mr. Prime Minister. So because we were late in paying them, I must be ashamed. I must be ashamed. I must be ashamed 10 years later to stand up in this parliament and say that you still owe civil servants back pay with all the revenue that you have collected. With the ABST, they're bringing how much hundreds of millions of dollars. With the personal income tax, another 40 million. The APUA debts, Madam Speaker, for the reverse osmosis plants are not accounted for here neither. Is that an APUA debt, Mr. Prime Minister? You're in charge of APUA. Or is that a government guaranteed debt by the central government? I do not know. You haven't told us in this budget what it is. All of these debts to a Dadley Chinese power plant is accounted for on page 69, Madam Speaker. Item listed as 42 if you look. But where's the original amount of the two loans totaling $52.5 million US, Mr. Prime Minister? Is the $5 million in payment of interest as indicated going towards that loan in 2014? I would like that clarified. Excuse me. Can the power plant generate that much in profits, Madam Speaker, in order to meet that obligation? Plus, in addition to that servicing of the loan of $5 million in interest, Madam Speaker, on top of that $5 million in interest, and you have $8,514,553 in repayment of principal, which has been budgeted, if you look in line 42, page 69. Will that power plant, Madam Speaker, generate enough profit or even enough revenue? What about the operating expenses? We're not told anything about the operating expenses, and as we know, that plant consumes inordinate amounts of fuel. What do you call it? Heavy fuel, HFO, bunker C, and diesel and lubricating oil. Madam Speaker, another question I want to ask the Minister responsible for APUA. Why have the reports scheduled to be published each month disappeared from the newspaper? It was customary that the reports every single month were published in the Daily Observer, and they've disappeared from the newspaper since last year, September 2013. Why isn't the newspaper publishing the monthly consumption, the monthly production, and the other data that usually are communicated to the general public? And why the interest payment of $2,401,955, Madam Speaker, on the first of the two loans to build the A terminal at VC Bird Airport? Can you tell us about that, sir? Isn't there a moratorium that we were told when you had your speech up there at the airport, that there was a moratorium from the Chinese on both interest and principal? Why hasn't the Parliament never seen this contract? Maybe that is a silly question, Madam Speaker. because you have brought only one contract here. The creditor insisted you obey the law. I believe that to be Credit Suisse for the airport upgrade at item 5 and 6 on page 70, where zero appears, zero. How can you have a budget and you're building a whole terminal, a whole airport up there, and you have a line item, Mr. Prime Minister, for the airport, and zero appears? Look at it. Look at item 5 and 6 on page 70. What about the Venezuelan loan of August 2009, which is listed in item 39 on page 69 as US $50 million, Madam Speaker? First, when the Minister of Finance told us how we would be spending the money, it totaled 48.5 million US. What happened to the additional US $1.5 million? Because he got up in Parliament and he gave us and said a whole breakdown of how he's spending this 50 million US, and it didn't add up to 50 million. When we took our calculators and added, it added to $48.5 million. So where is this other $1.5 million accounted in his budget for, Madam Speaker? The Minister also made that announcement of the loan on Crusader Radio, to be specific, on August the 13th, 2009. It was not in Parliament, I'm wrong. It was in the Crusader Radio that he made that pronouncement. But what about the agreement? Where is the agreement, Mr. Prime Minister? Do you have any plans to bring it here to Parliament? You told us that you called Chavez, you have such a great relationship, or had such a great relationship, and you got 50 million US over telephone. And I congratulate you for your great negotiating skills to get the 50 million US, sir. But where is the agreement? It is noted, Madam Speaker, that you plan to pay $3,873,420 in interest payments in 2014. And that is why we need to see the loan agreement. Because the Prime Minister told us that he received a call from Mr. Chavez at 1 a.m. that night on August 2009 morning. Can we see that loan agreement, Mr. Prime Minister? I remember, Madam Speaker, when we were in government, the current Prime Minister and member for St. John's Rural West used to chastise us for not bringing the loan agreements, for borrowing funds, and not bringing them in a timely manner here to the Parliament. But they have done far worse than us, Madam Speaker, far worse. Madam Speaker, can I now bring the attention of this Honourable House to items number 6 to items number 17 of page 66 of the estimates. Which one are you looking for in page 66? Which section are you looking for page 66?
66
of the estimates. Oh, 66 is a script, administrative overview.
You want the budget speech?
Of the estimates, but not the budget speech. This is the budget speech, is this. I need to get page 66. I want to look at items 6 through 17. Because we have not seen the loan documents.
Which one is 66?
So it's in one of the green or orange stuff. Give me 1 minute, Madam Speaker, please. Is it that? Correct, thank you. And it's so small. You have to have magnifying glasses or 20/15 vision to see these loans. Good thing I have good eyes. Yes, Madam Speaker, sorry about that. Page 66 of the estimates, the yellow part, Madam Speaker, where it talks about the debt. If we look at items 6 to 17, this Parliament has yet to see the loan documents as required by law and yet to give its authorization to borrow on the regional government securities market, Madam Speaker. We have not seen any of these loan agreements and their excessive amounts. If we look, just case in point, a few of them. On June the 30th, 2011, Madam Speaker, US $13 million or EC 35 million. These are all in the regional stock exchange. the regional government securities marketing. And, Madam Speaker, in order to borrow on the regional government securities market, page 66, sir, the yellow pages, this one, sir.
No, the estimates.
The estimates, the big book.
At the back, Chief. At the back.
The yellow section, right.
Yeah.
Page 66.
No, not those. The yellow one. The one further back.
It's the last section, Mr. Prime Minister, right. Page 66. And I sympathize with you. You need magnifying glasses to see these things. On June the 30th, Madam Speaker, 2011, US $13 million or EC 35 million. On July the 27th, Madam Speaker, 2011, $20 million, I guess that's EC. On July the 28th, 2011, Madam Speaker, 5,530,000. There's no listing for 2012. So there must be a mistake. Nothing for 2012. Then you go on March 28th, 2013, Madam Speaker, there's $10 million. On July the 31st, 2013, you have US 13 million or EC $35 million. On September the 6th, 2013, 17,990,000. On September the 26th, 2013, you have US 5,050,000 or the EC equivalent, Madam Speaker, of 13,635,000. On October the 9th, 2013, 20 million EC. On November the 13th, 2013, 20,920,000. On December the 5th, 2013, $10 million. And on December the 17th, 2013, $15 million. Madam Speaker, this is an excessive amount of borrowing. And we must be told, this Parliament and the public must know what these debts, what did we raise these monies on this regional security stock market to do, and how they were utilized, and how these monies were spent, and if it were for specific projects. You can't just plunge these figures in here and just expect us to say yes because the ayes have it, yes, we approve. We need to know what these monies were for, Madam Speaker. There's a substantial amount of monies.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. I mean, I can't take this anymore. The very area from which is quoting indicates...
Point of elucidation.
Huh?
Elucidation.
Page... What did you say, Madam Speaker?
66.
Elucidation.
Yes, point of elucidation. Speaks to what the financing was about.
What page, sir?
Well, not unless I'm reading from the... Is that page 65?
66.
Well, it's the same thing. You're going over from 65 right through to 66.
No, 65, you're correct. 65 is the regional government securities. But it doesn't say, sir. What I see maturity date of the loan, interest. Okay, take the first one, regional government securities market, 20 million. It says 5-year note to refinance existing regional security bonds. But it doesn't tell us what it's for, sir. It tells us the interest rate, the interest date, and the maturity date.
It tells you to refinance whatever. That's what it says.
But it doesn't say what you're refinancing, what you're spending the money on, sir. This is over $150 million.
And you go right down each one of them.
No, but sir, it does not.
Anyway, go ahead.
But sir, it does not tell you. I thank you. Yes. I don't know why you want to be at confrontation, you know. But sir, it doesn't tell you here what you're refinancing these loans. There must be existing loans that you built a building, or you paid salaries, or you did something with it. It should say. All right. And when you go to the banks now, it does tell you. If you look now on page 66, Madam Speaker, and you see Royal Bank of Canada, and tells you $2,752,000 in 2012. You see? Antigua Commercial Bank, it tells you here $3,500,000 to liquidate Barbuda Council overdraft, to settle outstanding interest on treasury bills and bonds, and to assist with payment of various creditors. So the local banks tells you, but none of the refinancing on the regional stock exchange gives you an explanation. That's the point that I'm making. Global Bank of Commerce, Antigua and Barbuda Investment Bank, $238,549,064.65, consolidated of various loans and overdrafts as of 21st of December 2011. The interest rate and the maturity date is there. You go to Caribbean Union Bank, $22 million loan for the financing of central government fiscal deficit. Okay, so at least it tells you there. The local banks, you give the proper explanation. The external regional security markets, you give no explanation. That's the point that I'm making. You borrowed from Sagico $7,500,000 in 2011. You borrowed from Scotiabank a sum and restructured the same in the amount of $18,131,199. And then in August of 2013, $5 million again from Scotiabank, Madam Speaker. In November 2009, they then went to the Stanford's Bank, which is now called ECAB, and they reconsolidated $871,871. And I don't know why they ever paid back that $40 million US to Stanford's Bank. I was the junior minister of finance when we paid it, when we borrowed it. Why you paid it back? Yeah, you consolidated it. We were never to pay that loan. What we did, we paid the Kuwaitis for the raise, we paid the CDB, I can tell you everything we paid. We paid the University of the West Indies, we paid our raise. Yes, it came to Parliament. I know, you should not have paid it. But then you will go to the Antigua Commercial Bank, Madam Speaker, and they get another loan for $3,500,000. Then you return again to the same Antigua Commercial Bank for $58 million restructured loan. And then you go to Global Bank of Commerce and contract another loan of $1,568,204 US. And then you go to the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Bank and you get another loan, and that's why they're in so much trouble, Madam Speaker, for $238,549,64. I mean, Madam Speaker, that is too much, Madam Speaker, to borrow from one bank, a small asset bank with a small asset base like that, $238,549,064, and then you return to them again 3 months later and take out another $33 million from them? Pardon me? Why they couldn't say no? Who, at the end of the day, who you think is going? And at the end of the day, Mr. Prime Minister, and at the end of the day, who you think is going to have to bail them out now? The taxpayers of this country, the taxpayers of the OECS will have to bail them out. With all the toxic loans that they have on their balance sheet. Can the Minister, Madam Speaker, when he winds up, can the Minister please explain item number 12 on page 67? I don't understand that. Where the government borrowed $11 million to purchase the Food City building, and further explain item number 18, where you indicated the purchase of a turbine. Maybe you could help me. What is this turbine in 2005, Mr. Minister of APUA, by way of a loan exceeding $10 million, I guess, RBTT? What is this loan for a turbine? Is this Tango? That's not the same Tango that they shut down? So why did they buy a turbine for $10 million in 2005? What is that about?
They bought it before, since we did. We owe the bank. Since we were there, we ordered the turbine, we had a loan at the bank.
And who shut it down?
The UPP shut it down.
Why they shut it down?
I don't know. You can ask.
I would like an explanation if it's not working.
We had that loan.
Okay, but why is it shut down?
They met that loan there.
Madam Speaker, I have not listed the amounts borrowed from Caribbean Union Bank, the Royal Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, the First Caribbean International Bank, or the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. There are many. They're all in here. And you can indulge yourself and your spare time to have a look at it. But this has been a tax, borrow, and splurge government, Madam Speaker. And where are the assets from all these borrowings? They do not exist. The outgoing government has splurged, they've fetted, what have they done with all of this money? We see a car park standing down there that up to now it can't be finished. How much do we owe? Where's the loan agreement? When Parliament will see it? We need to know about that car park down there at Independence Avenue. We need to know whether we got value for money for these properties that you have bought. Good value for money. I mean, we are going to inherit these debts. I mean, then I read in the paper now, Madam Speaker, I crave your indulgence, power companies whose government and others again. So if we lose, this is going to be a next debt that we have to incur. We do not even know what the High Court here, because the Privy Council have ruled with the APC matter, that the High Court has to assess the damages. We don't know how much it's going to be, if it's $100 million, $200 million, what it is. And now the APC, I mean, they've now taken APUA, the central government, the Prime Minister, the Beijing Construction, the Exim Bank of China, and said that they've conspired and they're suing for breach of contract and a declaration that the Prime Minister acted unlawfully. So if they win this case, this is more damages. I mean, I'm sorry for the new Minister of Finance, who is going to be, his job is going to be, he's not going to be able to sleep. I mean, with all these debts of Andrew Gutierrez debt, the Half Moon Bay debt, this Hadid APC debt, now another APC lawsuit, we don't, that'll be another $100 million. Where are we going to get it, Madam Speaker? We are going to inherit these debts. You'll be out of office. That's why you deliberately try to wipe out St. Peter's, my good friend.
Honorable Member, imputing improper motives. Take that back.
Sorry, Mr. Prime Minister. But we will inherit those debts. The Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party government, and we will have to go out there and find creative ways to bring investors to this country and to create employment. Don't worry, you are passe. Samantha going to beat you up out there. Your seasoned rice not going no more. They say it's stale.
Honorable Member.
But he's troubling me.
But you don't need to descend to that level.
He's telling me that they're going to put me out, and he's irritating me and attacking me and imputing improper motives. You're not hearing what he's saying?
And you have Honorable Member for St. Mary South. Please leave him alone. Honorable Member for St. Peter. Please keep the discussion elevated.
So, Madam Speaker, they have splurged with the money. They have misspent the monies that they've collected. We don't see no tangible assets out there that have created any jobs and wealth for the people. So what have you done with all these extra additional millions of dollars? And now we will inherit these debts. We will inherit their malspending, Madam Speaker. We will face their troubled legacies and all of their litigation and court cases. But you know something, Madam Speaker? We are ready for the challenge. We are ready for the rescue. We have done it before. The 76ers did it. Lester Bird and Hugh Marshall and Keith Hurst and all of them went out there, and Robin Yearwood. And they built this country. They went out. They created foreign investors. They bought hotels here. He bought Rob Barrett here. They built all these beautiful hotels. And we can do it again, Madam Speaker. The end is nigh for them, Madam Speaker. And a new beginning is around the corner. Madam Speaker, I have a little bit more time.
You have until 12:47.
Okay, but I can ask for a little more time, right? I don't want a lot. I just want to speak on my constituency now, Madam Speaker.
But you have until 12:47. You have more than enough time to do that.
The Prime Minister say you give me some more time. Prime Minister already signaled to the Speaker. I saw him.
Honorable Member, I saw no such signal. I saw no such signal. The House has to approve.
So I have until when, Madam Speaker?
12:47.
12:47, that's enough, Madam Speaker. That's enough. Madam Speaker, the good people of St. Peter's, I want to address my beloved people out there. Because, Madam Speaker, they have been victimized. From 2004 up to today, they were the first employees down at the port to be sent home. The first employees at St. John's Development to be sent home, Madam Speaker. There's been no road infrastructure program in the entire constituency. We have the worst roads, Madam Speaker, in Painters East, Painters Paradise, the Social Security homes, the Antec homes. Still, the government have done nothing to help with the flooding up there at Painters. Then you go, Madam Speaker, up to Weirs and to Gunthrops and Lightfoot East. The roads are deplorable. My constituents, when it rains, have to put bags on their feet. They can't even get to work. They can't even get into their cars, Madam Speaker. I mean, after all, they're tax-paying citizens, Madam Speaker, just like all the other good Antiguans and Barbudans. Why should they be victimized in this manner, Madam Speaker? You know how many meetings I went with the previous minister, the member for St. Philip South, the Honorable McDaniel. Promises, promises, promises. And then, Madam Speaker, the current member for Barbuda, my good friend Mr. Trevor Walker, promises again. It can't be right. You have overgrown costly trees all in the side, the beautiful roads that we built in Vernon, they're unpassable in Vernon. No street lights. Madam Speaker, I have to go in my pocket and order street lights and put them up on the lampposts. And don't speak about the health facilities. I see you all talk about modernizing the clinics and what you're doing. The clinic in Power, Madam Speaker, it leaks. There's no ventilator, no antibiotics, no bandage. Every week the nurse, the district nurse has to come and have to write a check to buy basic necessities for the clinic. The same one in Piers. What has the people of St. Peter done to the United Progressive Party so bad? They're citizens, they pay taxes. You hold all your great functions in that lovely edifice, in the St. Peter's Anglican Church. You enjoy going and worshipping there with the Defense Force and other functions. Why are you treating the people like that, Mr. Prime Minister? Give instructions to your Minister of Public Works. Not only did they lose their jobs and lose their dignity at the port and at Public Works and at the St. John's Development, but at least basic infrastructure they're entitled to. Equitably. You said you are going to have sheep and goats, that you're going to have a tent for everyone, but you have done the exact opposite, because you know it's the bedrock of Labour, the same thing you did to St. Philip North, another garrison constituency. You have neglected his constituency for 9 years. It cannot be right, Mr. Prime Minister. Because Mr. Prime Minister, when you were leader of the opposition, I was Minister of Public Works, and you would come and you would say, I need so and so done in my constituency. We would try our best. Although you had a large constituency, we could not accommodate everything. We would try our best. The same thing with you, Honourable Member for St. Mary South. Yes, Brooks didn't love you, but I used to give instructions. No, I'm not yielding. Not, no, unless a point of order. Point of order?
Give me a minute, please.
Only because I respect you, you know.
Point of order, sir.
I will give him, I respect him. He used to give me sandwiches.
Is it a point of order or elucidation?
Elucidation, Madam Speaker.
Okay, all right.
Madam Speaker, they put a gang, 2 gangs in my constituency. And they stay out there for 4 weeks with no materials. And no road since Robert Hall get paved in that area until 2004, 2005. No road for all these years. So no road get done out there. You tried, yes. But you send them out there and Brooks didn't give them no material to do the work. So no work get done. So count that off your list. Take that off the list. No work got done. They stay out there all day and cook and drink rum and don't do no work.
He's correct, Madam Speaker. Mr. Brooks had his differences with him. But I tried my best as the minister. I couldn't take a stick and beat Mr. Brooks and the civil servants and the workmen. But when you would come to my office, I afforded you the courtesy, didn't I? And then I called Mr. Brooks into my office and B.T. Lewis and tell them that I want infrastructure work done immediately in your constituency. Did I do that or not, sir? I'm not duplicitous like you, so please, please. Madam Speaker, all I'm pleading to the Honourable Prime Minister He's Prime Minister for the whole of Antigua and Barbuda, albeit that he's only there for the next 60 days or less. He's Prime Minister for every single citizen and every single paying citizen that pays their taxes into the coffers of the Treasury. And he must ensure that infrastructure and essential services, even garbage collection, they won't collect the garbage no more in payers if it's how filthy it is. I have to call up Lionel Michael, and he does try. When I call him, I can't lie on him. But for weeks sometimes, there's no garbage collection in piers. If you see the potholes in piers and the lack of lights on the basketball court, if you see these bathrooms on the basketball court, when I was Minister of Public Works and I built that beautiful bathroom on the basketball court with the stands, all my colleagues were jealous and said I was spending too much. If you see they won't even have running water to the bathrooms for young men to play basketball, and you're a sportsman and a sports advocate. And that's how we are treated, Madam Speaker. What have they done, this UPP government? And now, Madam Speaker, they want to come and do the worst thing now to the people of St. Peter's and wipe out the constituency that's been there since 1951 and has been loyal to the Antigua Labour Party since Joseph Myers, Donald Lawrence. Before Joseph Lawrence was Donald Lawrence, he ran there and it was one constituency, St. Philip and St. Peter. But it's not going to happen, Madam Speaker. They're going to lose the boundaries case. Shepherd, right, Donald Shepherd. Madam Speaker, the point that I'm making, it's unfair. And that cannot be nothing else but wholesale, vulgar gerrymandering by the Boundaries Commission. There's no, I will keep saying it.
Honorable member?
Yes.
Yes, please. You need to withdraw that statement.
Why, Madam Speaker? I didn't impute no improper motives to nobody. No, Madam Speaker, I'm firm on that. Firm gerrymandering of that constituency to wipe out St. Peter's.
Honorable member, the court has already ruled on that.
The court has ruled on many things and you all still come here and talk about IHI.
Honorable member, why are you bringing that in? Once you open the door to that, then you can't appeal to me afterwards to close it.
Madam Speaker, it is my humble view.
The court has not ruled on IHI. The court has ruled on the charge of gerrymandering.
Honorable Justin Sam has
Just
come
be
here.
very, very careful with what you say.
I said that they have ruled. Yes, they have. There is an injunction from the appeal court. And still, you all still come in here and talk about it. Madam Speaker, I'm going to come to you. You're right. And I'm not going to get no blood pressure from the Prime Minister today. You will give a nice eulogy at my funeral? Will you give a nice eulogy?
Of course, I'll say the best about you. You're a very good man in certain ways.
I hope you will say all our secrets too, you know.
Well, you know, it's a group, don't know. I mean, the mind talk, twisting, more than him. You had to show that.
I hope you will tell the country of all the nice pork that we will eat down at the Kentish Road on a Friday.
Honorable member? Honorable members.
Madam Speaker.
I'm starting to wonder if you two are on Kentish Road.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Come. Let us get back to the
good food. It's good
Let
food.
us get back to the debate.
Good food. Sit down,
Honorable
man.
members.
Madam Speaker. We will inherit their debts and we're going to inherit all their mal-spending. And we're going to have to fix this economy. But we have the way about to do it. We have bright leadership under the leadership of Gaston Brown. We have experienced leadership with our leader emeritus. We have a great team, Madam Speaker. But his experience, you can't attack his experience. This man has not been given, let's be serious. He has not been given his credit. Lester Bryant Byrd should be named the father of modern Antigua. He has transformed the economic landscape of this country from 1976. V.C. Byrd can never be raised for what he has done to fight the colonialists and to bring us to independence and what he has done in the memories of the people of this country. But Lester Bryant Byrd should be named the father of modern economic Antigua. It is he who brought Heritage Key here. It is he who built the Royal Antigua. It is he who created the whole tourism industry. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister. And one good thing with Lester Bird is that he delegates authority. He has the capacity to delegate and to surround himself with young, bright persons.
You were in charge when you was there. You were in charge.
Well, he delegated certain responsibilities to me and I got the job done. At the chagrin of my colleagues who said I was unelected. But, Madam Speaker, in all fairness to Lester Bird, he has done a lot for this economy, a lot. I think after his father, there's no Antiguan that have done as much in terms of representing Antigua in the political landscape here, regionally, respected by the CARICOM leaders, respected in international fora, and he did a hell of a good job in transforming this economy and rebuilding this economy, Madam Speaker. Oh, hell. Sorry, Madam Speaker. But he did a great job, Madam Speaker, in rebuilding the economy, creating wealth, improving the quality and standard of lives for our people. And I think he has not gotten his just credit. And I think it's a shame, Madam Speaker, that our esteemed Governor General will then try to denigrate his contribution and take away from his contribution by not agreeing to knight Lester Bird. It's a shame, and you, Honorable Prime Minister, should not preside over that, because we cannot continue to have this divisive politics of red and blue and hatred. We cannot. We are one loving country, no matter what the outcome of the elections will be, which there will be. The Antigua Labour Party will be victorious. We're not going to victimize nobody. We're not going to put nobody in jail neither. Our leader have already said that. We're not going to hang nobody. You'll be free to live in peace and tranquility in this, your country. You have made your contribution, Mr. Prime Minister, as leader of the opposition for many years. You have made your contribution as Prime Minister, albeit you have not been very successful in terms of leaving a legacy and leaving your footprints on the sand of times like how V.C. Bird and Lester Bird did. But at the end of the day, you're an Antiguan. And you have tried. You have tried. But we will not be victimizing any of you all. You're all Antiguans and Barbudans. And I'm like William Daniel, I don't believe in that. And just I share the same sentiments that you have always espoused. That we're all Antiguans and Barbudans. Politicians are human beings. We all make mistakes. We're not perfect, Madam Speaker. So please, Mr. Prime Minister, give some instructions immediately, and not just because it's election time. The people of St. Peter's crying out for some infrastructure, some street lights, some lights on the basketball court, the football courts, the health clinics in Pierce, in Param, all the shrubs. I do buy from time to time. I do. I buy street lights from time to time. When I had to resign from the Antigua Labour Party, I had to go in my pocket and buy $75,000 from APUA for water, to run water in Vernon's. I don't have as much as you. My own, the litigation that you have put me through for the last 9 years have made the largest dry up. But Madam Speaker, the end is nigh, and a new beginning is around the corner. God has blessed Antigua and Barbuda nation with a great new leader in the name of Gaston Brown, a young, energetic, brilliant leader. You heard his speech, Madam Speaker, night before last. He's going to revolutionize this economy. He's going to create an economic tiger of the Caribbean that we can be proud of, Madam Speaker, in this country. When Gaston Brown and Team Labour, with the experience of the Honourable Robin Yearwood, Honourable Malvin Joseph, Q.T. Benjamin, Leader Lester Bird Emeritus, Madam Speaker, and the young, new, bright candidates like Samantha Marshall and Melford Nicholas and Michael Brown and Colin James and Londell Benjamin. You got to be careful down there. Londell Benjamin, I'm coming to help him campaign. You know, I have no time to go and help the others. You know, if I come down there and help him. So you better be nice to me. God has blessed Antigua and Barbuda, Madam Speaker. As a proud nation, God has blessed the people of St. Peter's, Madam Speaker. And we are indeed ready to rebuild this country, ready to govern this country. We are indeed ready to recreate wealth for the people and the citizens of this country, to improve their standards and their quality of life, Madam Speaker. We have done it before and we will do it again, Madam Speaker. Their time is nigh. Their time is up, Madam Speaker. And I'm only asking the Antigua public out there, don't be fooled by all these little largesse and handouts that they're giving you now. Don't be fooled. Take it, eat them out, drink them out, Madam Speaker. But make sure you remember the last 9.5 years of suffering that this government has put you through. Your children and your children unborn. Think of country. Don't think of self. Take what they offer you. Take what they give you. In 2004, their campaign was eat us out, drink us out, and vote us out. And you did it to us. Do the same to them now. Because they have failed you. Their policies have failed you, Madam Speaker. There have been no strategic thinking, no economic planning in this government, Madam Speaker. Lovely sounding words by the Minister of Finance, but no real tangible benefits to the people of this country. I have never seen so much poverty, Madam Speaker. Never seen it. On my phone every day, 200-300 text messages asking for $200, $300, asking for groceries, asking for food. They come to my home from 6 o'clock in the morning and ring the gate. I've never seen it. Never seen it, Madam Speaker. I've never seen people in such dire conditions needed food. Madam Speaker, they're going to all of them. They're not being truthful. They know what is going on. If they don't know what is going on, tell them to get out of their lofty offices and go in their constituencies. They come to you too. They come to you more than the others. Well, I'm benevolent. I'm generous. I come from a family that always give, and you know that. You know that, Mr. Prime Minister. It is in my nature to be so. My father was not a politician, neither my grandfather or my Uncle Morris, and that is in their nature. But, Madam Speaker, I end by saying I would like to thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to thank the other members on the other side for their contribution, and especially the brilliant contributions from my colleagues, our esteemed leader, Honorable Gaston Brown, our emeritus leader, member for St. John City South, my beloved buddy and brother for life, the member for St. Philip's North, and the member for St. Mary's North, Honorable Marlon Joseph, and Tico Lake. Anyway, Madam Speaker, I wish you well, and I would like to thank the staff and the clerk to Parliament and the policemen who have been here. I was not here for the last week, and the lovely cooks in the kitchen for the lovely meals that they've prepared for us, because I'm very hungry right now. But may God bless the Prime Minister, and long live the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. 2 months from now or less, Madam Speaker, we shall be sitting on that side, and most of them not even going to be in here, but they will be sitting on